The following is a conversation with Jennifer Drummond. Jennifer Drummond is a proud mother of seven, and in 2018, after a near fatal car crash, stared death right in the eye and came out alive. She is the first woman ever to climb the 7 second summits in the world, and is coming out with a book called BreakProof: 7 Strategies to Build Resilience and Achieve Your Life Goals. Tune in to hear more about her story. So, Jen, you're a world record holder. Can you speak a little bit about what world record you hold?
Yes. I'm the first woman to climb the 7 second summits, which are the second highest point on each of the 7 continents.
Got it. Interesting. That's an awesome world record that you have, and we'll get into a little bit more about that. But that's just one part of your really awesome and incredible story. But as all stories do, we all have a start. So, what's the beginning of yours?
Let's see. Well, how far back do we want to go?
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Holland, Michigan, which is a cute little town that has a tulip time festival every single spring. Great place to be raised. I have a brother and a sister, a fantastic mom and dad, a lot of cousins that I grew up with. So very much had a happy childhood.
Got it. That's incredible. Is that by any chance anywhere near kind of a northern Michigan? I think I remember I visited. I don't want to butcher the name of the town once, but I think it was called Petoskey or something like that. Does that sound
Yeah.
familiar at all?
Yeah. Petoskey's up north. I'm a little bit south. I'm the opposite side of Detroit. So about 2.5 hours from Chicago.
Got it. Interesting. Michigan's a cool town. I was fortunate enough to visit one time, and it was really cool to see that during the summer it gets dark very very late out there. So the summer nights
Yeah.
in Michigan are something special. So I'm sure you had a great time there. So great to hear about that. Ultimately, fast forwarding to 2018, you had something really big and kind of dramatic, and was something really big that happened in your life. So can you elaborate a little bit about what happened in 2018 and kind of how you reflected on that?
Yeah. So 2018, I call it the year of the car crash. I was in a horrific accident that should have taken my life and luckily didn't. And I do say that it woke me up to living. It made me realize that I do not get to choose when I die, but I sure get to choose how I live. And so it sent me into 2019 on a big year of reflection of how am I choosing to live? What do I want to do? What happens if this is my last day, week, month, year? What are things that I want to have experienced before I pass away? And that really opened up the doors to a whole universe of options.
So, in a weird way, do you feel that you were fortunate to have kind of a touch with death to really identify what you want to do with your life?
100%. I am thankful for that accident in more ways than one. It opened me up to, we all know that we're not here forever, but I think we get disconnected from that and can get caught into our troubles and upsets and hard things. And instead of embracing life as this great opportunity, we can get stuck in our story. And so the accident definitely woke me up to the fact that there was more out there for me and it was time to start living.
For sure, because I think a lot of people, a lot of times you hear about the regrets of dying people and ultimately the things they could have accomplished. And, it's really unfortunate to go through a traumatic experience, but if you're able to come out of it alive, you just kind of have that touch with death and really feel what's important to you. So great that you were able to get that perspective. How would you say that you were able to get on the road to recovery, really from after that accident and really transitioning to what you became?
I'm again just grateful for every day that I was alive. Everything that happened after that point was like bonus, right?
Hmm.
Like I remember getting a call from my kid's school. The principal said that my son was acting up. And I told him, I'm sorry to hear that. I'll definitely have a conversation with him. And the principal was like, I thought you'd be a little more mad. I go, I probably should be. But the fact that I'm here having this call, I'm just so grateful to have this experience because I almost didn't.
Hmm.
So even terrible things, like your kid being a turd at school, isn't that bad. And you're just grateful, like, hey, you know what? He's living, I'm living, we're here. Let's get over it. Onward.
Hmm. Got it. So really just being able to appreciate all the small things because after being at a touch with death, you know how easily all those things could be taken away from you.
Definitely.
So speaking to someone, one of the things that I spoke about earlier, one of the summits that you were fortunate enough to climb, and perhaps the most famous summit in the world, is Mount Everest. So before we get into your journey about that, can you just tell me about the feeling that you had once you peaked Everest, or what you felt once you got up there?
Yeah. So Everest is amazing, right? I mean, it was one of those feelings where I'm on top of the world. There's songs about it, right? What it's like to be on top of the world. And you're just in awe of the human spirit and what humans are truly capable of. And Everest is one of those pinnacle moments in our lives that we get to reflect back on and remind ourselves that we can do hard things. We can do scary things. We can do things that we don't think we can do.
Mm.
And so when you stand up on top of that mountain, it just signifies that we're capable of so much more than I think we allowed ourselves to be. Everest was a training ground for me. So, Everest, although it's the highest mountain in the world, we used it for training for K2, which is the second highest point in the world. K2 is significantly more difficult than Everest. So, I was very grateful that my experience on Everest was so empowering and so positive because it really carried into all the other climbs that I had.
So did you set out to do Everest right after your recovery, or you just wanted to start getting in shape? Like, what did the path look like to you deciding, screw it, I'm just going to climb Mount Everest like it's nobody's business?
Yeah. So I had that car accident in 2018. 2019 became a big year of reflection. Who am I? What do I want my legacy to be? What are the things that I want to experience, see, do, be a part of during this journey of life? And so I made this huge bucket list. So 2019 was the year of the bucket list. 2020 I was turning 40. So when I was reviewing my bucket list, I'm like, I'm going to do something significant for my 40th birthday. And when I was looking over the list, climb a mountain was on there. I'm like, I'm going to climb a mountain for my 40th birthday. This will be a good way to launch this next decade. So I asked some friends that were into mountaineering, if you could climb one mountain in the whole world, what would it be? And the general consensus back to me was a mountain named Ama de Blanc. It is located in Nepal, and if any of us have watched a Paramount Pictures movie, it's the mountain in the logo of the Paramount Pictures where the stars go around. So I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, that's a perfect mountain to climb. I'll climb Ama de Blanc. So I'm training for Ama, and then COVID happens. So now I'm a homeschool teacher to 7 beautiful children because school was not in session and we were not traveling to any other part of the world at this time. One day, my son was struggling with his math homework. I'm like, listen, buddy, we do hard things. I've given him the parent pep talk when hard things show up. He looks at me straight in the face and he goes, if we do hard things, why are you climbing a mountain called I'm a Dumb Blonde instead of a real mountain like Mount Everest? He said, Ama de Blanc, honey. Not I'm a dumb blonde, but thank you. You know what? You finish your homework. We'll look at Everest. So he finished his homework. We looked at Everest. He went to bed. I was still looking at Everest. I thought to myself, why not? If Everest is the hardest mountain in the whole world to him, I'm going to climb it. And I'm going to show him that whatever Everest is, we're capable of climbing.
So you credit the initial idea of Everest to your son.
100%. Yes.
Got it. That's really funny. It's also, I think it's funny how a lot of times children can just be like apolitically correct and just kind of mispronounce mispronounce the names of mountain peaks. So I thought that was really funny too. But incredible to hear that he was able to kind of inspire you to do that. What would you say that the training for Everest was like? Like, did you have a really significant training plan to climb it, or it was just kind of a rapid thing? You're like, we're just going to climb it, one peak at a time and figure it out.
Okay, so Everest was, I had a year to train. I hired a coach that had climbed Everest himself and had trained other athletes to get up to the top. So every week I had a training plan that I followed. Um, it's just like going on vacation, right? Like I want to go to Hawaii to make the most out of that vacation. You're going to research it and understand all the things to do and the days to do them and all that kind of stuff. When you go to Everest, you want to be prepared. You don't want to
Mhm.
just show up at Everest and say like, hey, I'm here. Let's make it happen. So definitely had a pretty intense training program, not only physically, but mentally. It's amazing how many people don't climb Everest because of the mental challenge, not necessarily the physical.
Got it. So what would you say? after your training and as you're about to start climbing Mount Everest, what would you say that the journey was like on the way up? Were there any surprises? Was it exactly what you were expecting? Really, how was that journey kind of as you were doing it?
Yeah. I mean, you train for things and you prepare for things to go wrong, but I think it's never the thing you prepare for that goes wrong, but
As
the
am I.
fact that you prepared, now you can absorb whatever shows up. So we definitely got into some snowstorms we didn't expect. We definitely, the day that we summited was way colder than we expected it to be. We missed an avalanche by a day. Just like crazy things happen, right? The Khumbu icefall is a very challenging aspect of Everest. It shifts every day 3 to 6 feet. It's a section that you see a lot of times on the news because it has the ladders and it just looks so aggressive. It is that aggressive in real life. Every time I went through it, I went through a different way because that's how much it shifted and changed, that the routes never stayed the same. So that was pretty interesting. Climbing Everest also makes you very grateful for technology. Now they can send drones up the mountain and say, okay, should we go this way or that way? Or is this the right thing to do to set the ropes? Where before it would be a lot more good at that point, come back down because it didn't work. So we save a lot of human energy with some of the technologies these days.
Of everything that happened on the climb up, what do you think was the most challenging or the most surprising?
I think we were at Camp 2. So there's 4 camps on Everest before the summit. And we were at Camp 2, and the storm was more extreme than any of the news reports reported, any of the weather channels. And so snow was coming down in sheets. Like you could not see anything. And so we quickly accumulated 24 inches of snow within, maybe 12 to 18 hours,
It's
which is
crazy.
very dangerous because of avalanches and all that weight and everything else. The country of Nepal was like, hey, we think the mountain should be closed. Everybody get off the mountain. We're not going to run any more expeditions. I was climbing with an expedition team that was like, they don't know what we're in. They don't know what we're doing. It's going to be more dangerous going down than it is going to be going up. And so you're just, as a person that's not very familiar with climbing, doesn't really understand the logistics or who makes the call. It's a little heart wrenching when the government says don't go and then the person you're with says we're going and they're saying it's safer. So it's just learning who to trust, right? Like, and it is whoever's on the mountain is who you need to trust because they're in that environment. They know what's going on. Everybody else is just going off of reports and what's hearsay, right? Like a lot of times there's accidents on the mountain where someone dies and people call me for opinions on that. I can't give you an opinion because I wasn't there. It's
Hmm.
not fair for me to judge on an environment that I wasn't in because these environments are very specific and very unique and it's little things make a huge difference and it's hard to judge from the outside. So we decided to go up. Our camp got knocked out by an avalanche. I almost say 6 hours after we left, which is just wow that we were that close to that kind of an experience.
Interesting. How long would you say that the climb took from start to end? Was it a few days or within a day? I'm just not totally familiar with Mount Everest and the hike, so interested to hear from a veteran perspective.
Okay. So when you climb Everest, you have to do acclimatization rotations. So it's not like you get to the base and then it just takes you a couple weeks to get to the top and back down. You're actually going to go up the mountain until you hit a point of failure because
Hmm.
that point of failure, there's just not enough oxygen in the air and your body's not adjusted to that lack of oxygen environment. So you'll hit that point, and then when that happens, you'll go actually back down to base camp and you'll spend a few days there. And those days recovering at base camp, your body physiologically changes. And that physiological change produces more red blood cells. So when you go up the mountain further, next time you can without the struggle, because now the more red blood cells help operate in a lesser oxygenated environment. And so when we actually did the summit push, obviously there's people that are setting world records and they're trying to climb Everest in a day.
Hmm.
When you're climbing with a climbing company and you're going up as a group, when you actually go for the summit push, you normally go from base camp to camp 2. Not that many people stop at camp 1 after the rotation. So you go base camp, camp 2 to camp 3, camp 3 to camp 4, and then from camp 4 to the summit. And then depending on how you're feeling, you'll either go back down to 4 or 3 or 2, and then go all the way down to base camp. So for us, since there was a storm, we got stuck at Camp 2 an extra day. And that's okay, right? Like you're with your team and you make those decisions when you're actually on the climb.
Got it. So when you're actually doing it, the path to, the actual climb isn't just kind of a one straight up climb. It's really what you do is you go to a point of failure, you come back down, you go to a slightly higher point of failure, you come back down, and you kind of just keep doing that until your body physiologically changes enough so you can finally make the summit climb.
Correct. And people will use oxygen so they don't have to acclimatize as long. Right? So you're like, okay, at this point, I'm going to start using oxygen. So now I don't have to get my body that much ready past that point because oxygen will be running and I'll be fine.
Got it. I hate to ask, but was there ever a point where you were just like, I can't do this? Any moment thinking about quitting, or the whole time, regardless of how hard it was, you were determined to just make it to the top?
If somebody tells you during a mountain climb that they never feel like quitting, they're lying. Okay. I mean, it's like any of us, right? Anything that we're doing, if we're on a bike ride, we're going for a run or building a company, there's going to be points where you want to quit. Like that's just the facts of life. But you sit with that for a second and say like, okay, do I really want to quit? Is there more in the tank? Is that a story that I want to subscribe to? Is there another option? And then you get to decide if you want to continue or not.
Got it. I think that was beautifully said. And speaking of beautifully said, you're coming out with a book in the next few months. So can you briefly explain the title of the book and really what the book is about and what you hope readers can take away from it?
Yeah. So the book is titled BreakProof: 7 Strategies to Build Resilience and Achieve Your Life Goals. I wrote the book because I was halfway through this pursuit. I was sharing some stories with a friend over lunch. And he was like, you need to write a book. These are fascinating. I don't even like mountaineering. And I'm so entertained of what's going on. And since I had built a company before I got into mountaineering and hired myself out of a job, when I started climbing, I realized there's so many parallels between climbing a mountain, building a business, and living everyday life. And so what I do is I take each one of the mountains and I bring the reader on the adventure to that specific mountain. And we cover a specific strategy that I use when things get hard to continue going on to be able to climb whatever metaphorical mountain you're trying to climb. The reason why the book is titled Breakproof is because we're going to break. Like I don't know anytime anybody does anything that they do not break. But in that break, we have proof of what's working, what's not working, maybe what we need to adjust to be able to continue forward and just make things happen for us. So I named it Breakproof, not because you won't break in your pursuit, but because when you break, now you have proof of what you need to do to be able to continue on.
I think it's a beautiful title, a beautiful theme there. What do you hope that the biggest thing, other than kind of not breaking or anything else you have more specifically to share, the biggest thing that you want readers to take away after reading the book? Kind of say they finish the last page, what should their first impression be?
Like, okay, I can do this. Like I want people to feel empowered to be able to take the thing that is inside of them and share it with the world.
I think what's beautiful about it too is a lot of times you'll read books and they'll kind of give really generic and advice that's applicable to everyone, which is good, but sometimes you want a little more targeted advice. And I think that what's great about the book that you're writing is that you have specific examples. I mean, you literally lived it, you literally did it. So I think it's interesting that you're kind of taking these business pursuits and taking this advice and applying it to specific challenges you were on. Because I think ultimately the motivation behind maybe writing a book like this is trying to help galvanize people and help show practical examples. So really big kudos to you on that. And, best of luck with that. And I'll definitely include a link to that if anybody wants to check it out in the episode notes. In addition to kind of writing your book, there's a few other ventures that you're up to, kind of public speaking, as I said, being an author. You mentioned building a business. Can you speak a little bit about kind of what that is and what you were able to build up?
Yeah. So when I graduated from college, I took a career in finance. I worked for a couple different companies, learning how it all worked and different perspectives of ways to handle cases. And then I ended up going out on my own and developing a company that worked with institutions to provide investment services for their members or community. And that was a great job. I absolutely loved it because I just love helping people, right? We go to work for money, and then that money allows us to do things that we desire. buy the dream home, buy the dream car, send Junior to college, retire, all those different things. So it's really fun being a part of that story for somebody and helping them there. And then I built that business into a spot where I could hire myself out of a job because I started having kids and I wanted to be home with them and not be working as much. And so that's how it kind of evolved.
Got it. So right now you're more kind of in an advisory capacity to the business, but more involved with kind of some of your other things going on and really your family.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely.
Okay. Awesome. I think that's beautiful and definitely, I think aspirational for other entrepreneurial or business owners out there. On another note, similar to what you were saying earlier, when people are going for some success in life or trying to achieve the summit, whether it be for a mountain or a business or whatever goal they have in life, unfortunately, a lot of people, and it seems like most people give up. So, from your perspective, why do you think that most people end up giving up when pursuing their goals?
I think one of the biggest things that people struggle with pursuing their goals is getting enough help. I think a lot of us have these goals that are huge that we want to take on, and we think we need to do it alone. And we can't do it alone. Like, I don't know one thing that we can do alone, if I had to be honest with you. And so when I start running out of energy, or I start getting frustrated, or I start being like, oh, this isn't supposed to be what I'm doing, or this is too big, or why did I decide this? The first question I've trained myself to ask is, do I have enough help? Because if you have enough help, all of a sudden you have enough energy to get to your summit. If you don't have enough help, that means you're taking on too many roles, you're doing too many things, you're being pulled in too many directions, and it's hard. It's hard to climb anything if you have all that weight by yourself.
Got it. So, if anyone right now is kind of going through a struggle, really trying to achieve something, how would you suggest that they reach out or get help for whatever it is that they're trying to do?
I mean, that depends on your specific pursuit. I know, for example, when I wanted to climb Everest, calling my parents was not going to help me.
Hmm.
Okay. Like, they were easy to call, but they weren't really thrilled about the concept of me doing this thing. They
Hmm.
didn't think it was, all the things. So I had to find somebody that climbed Everest before and call them. And then they introduced me to other people that climbed Everest. So now all of a sudden, this big, hard thing was normalized because I knew a handful of people that had done it. And if I had questions or was upset or was wondering, like, should I do this piece of gear or train this way or do that way? I had a sounding board of experts.
Hmm. Got it. So, whatever it is you're trying to do, really try to get people who have been there or people who you think can really support you in whatever capacity they can.
Definitely.
Got it. After doing so much, is there anything else left on your bucket list that you want to achieve, or have you kind of done everything that a reasonable person can hope to achieve?
Oh my goodness, my bucket list is going to take 4 lifetimes to complete. I'm confident of that. So right now I am just appreciating what is, trying not to be in another pursuit too fast because I can get excited pretty easily. But there's definitely a lot of things on that bucket list that need to be checked off.
Got it. What are a few of them that you just really want to do? A few that you can accomplish within this lifetime, and not the next.
Yeah, not the next. One of the things I'm really excited about is my 3 oldest boys, I am taking to go climb Kilimanjaro in February.
Hmm.
So being able to share the passion with others, including my children, is something I'm really excited about. And so I'm gradually scheduling those trips to make that happen. Um, when I was traveling recently, someone introduced me to the 7 natural wonders of the world.
Hmm.
Those sound pretty interesting to add to the list and check off. So there's just things that keep getting added and looked at, and it's just getting it all in.
That lead to a fulfilling life. That's beautiful, and best of luck in achieving those. If you could go back and give advice to your 10-year-old self, what would it be and why?
Yeah. I tell myself to have more fun. I think for the longest time, I took life so seriously and I was so determined to get to the destination that I didn't allow myself to enjoy the ride as much as I could have. And looking back on things now, when things start to get hard, I pause. Is there something I can do right now that'd make this more fun or that'd make this easier? And instead of just grinding and pushing forward and pushing, I've learned to allow myself to breathe a little bit more and figure out how to add a little more fun into the journey.
Got it. So enjoying the ups, the downs of the journey, and trying to add fun in any way you can.
Definitely.
Got it. If you could have dinner with anyone else in history, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
I did a report on Harriet Tubman when I was in 3rd grade.
Hmm.
And just the work that she did with freeing slaves and all those things, I would love to talk to her and understand what it was like. The things that we don't get to read about in the history book.
For sure. I think reading is one thing, but getting to know another person face to face is another. And I think back then it was definitely much more difficult than it is to be bold nowadays, especially with everyone having a platform and a lot of social media and podcasts out there. So it would definitely be something interesting to check out. Other than the book that's coming out in the future, that's yours. Do you have any favorite books that you've read in the past and why?
Ooh, I have lots of really good books right now going. I normally have a few books at a time, but one that I just finished that I've recommended to a lot of people is called Unreasonable Hospitality. Will Guidara wrote it, and it talks about how his restaurant was ranked in the top 50 restaurants in the world. They were 50th, and the book takes you on the journey of what he does to get the restaurant to the number one restaurant in the world. And
Mhm.
it's just fascinating the role that hospitality plays in that and the upper echelon of restaurants.
It's actually a really incredible point you bring up because a lot of times we know the Michelin star restaurants, which are kind of the gold standard of the dining industry. And a lot of times what people don't know is they think that it's just the food is better. I mean, I'm sure the food is great, but at some point your ingredients can only be so natural, like so sourced from a certain place. It's really the hospitality that takes the cake on that one. As soon as you walk into these restaurants, everything is taken care of. It's really a journey. So definitely an exciting book that I think would be cool to check out for sure. What would you say that brings you the most happiness in life after achieving everything that you've done?
Simple things make me happy. And if you can keep simple things keeping you happy, life is good.
Got it. It's a beautiful note. And on that note, Jen, you've had an incredible story. You've done a lot of cool stuff in your life. Going to do a lot of other cool stuff with writing your book and everything else on your bucket list. Is there a final word that you have for anyone, whether it's relationship advice, life advice, business advice? Final word is yours.
Yeah. Okay. So I would say the accident woke me up to this concept. I don't get to choose when I die, but I sure get to choose how I live. So today, just take a moment and make a choice that's living for yourself and keep doing that. And you'll see how much fun and what unique ways your life unfolds.
It's a beautiful final word, Jen, and best of luck with everything. And thanks so much for taking the time to go on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with Jennifer Drummond. If you enjoyed the episode, rate the show on Spotify, drop a comment on YouTube, and subscribe.